And as I turned to say no, I'll never forget it. She leaned over and picked a piece of hair off of my shirt. And I was like, I'm in there.
You cannot ever say that out loud.
But he thinks that I'm like attacking his heart and his soul.
So we hang out, and he starts telling me about his on again, off again girlfriend.
So, welcome back to Coupled Up with Dex
And Chels.
We are so excited to continue our Coffee Convos series. Today we have with us James and Ashley Davidson Jr. Would you add the junior when you say the couple? What,
we're good.
Because like your mom's name isn't Ashley.
No, it's not.
Well, I'm just saying.
That's a good point. That's
Right.
valid.
So James and I are a part of the same fellowship together. Mm-hmm. He and I met through the fellowship. We're also involved in some similar public engagement circles. Yes. You know, let's dance around the subject a little bit. And so before Chelsea and I started this channel, James and I had the opportunity to just talk about it, and I told him what we're thinking about doing, and he was, of course, very excited. And especially given that we're trying to lead a Christ-centered relationship, building towards marriage, he thought it was dope. We talked about him and Ashley and how they walked and started their relationship with the same purpose. Then we also realized we went to the same church.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, our church isn't huge, but it's a sizable church.
Yeah.
It's a sizable church. And so we didn't even realize we went to the same church. So I'll let them introduce themselves. And
You want to introduce yourself first?
Oh, well, I'm Ashley Davidson.
Yeah, I hope
I
so.
used to be Ashley Rahaman, though. Okay. That's my old life, my former life.
Still, you'll always be a Rahaman.
Yes, I will.
For sure.
I'm Ashley Davidson, 32. Never been married before. No kids.
My name's James Davidson, 32 as well, never been married. Really excited to be here with my wife. This is our first, I think, live interview. I mean, we talked to each other enough for it to be an interview, but to share our story, I think it'll be pretty good.
Okay.
I love it.
And y'all said y'all been married a year and a half.
Yes.
Dope. So, how did you all meet? How did you come together?
It's your turn.
It's your turn. You go ahead.
Okay. So we met. We met by fate. Honestly, we were both in a store in First Colony Mall.
We were in Things Remember.
Things Remember. Thank you. We were in Things Remember.
You were picking up something for another girlfriend. She was picking up something.
That's exactly what happened.
Wait,
Yes, it was. Well, it was interesting because, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit later.
Oh.
And I think hers was similar. We were both in there shopping for someone else, but they weren't. It wasn't a committed thing that we were in. We were just being nice. It was around the holiday times. It was around Christmas, and so I was picking up something for someone, and she was doing the same. And I kid you not, we locked eyes, and I swear I knew her. I'm like, I think I know her. And she looked at me. It wasn't like a weird look or anything, but eventually I had mustered up enough courage to go over there and say something. I should probably pause. I was in a very different mental state in that time. The week before, I don't think I told you this. The week before, I went to the mall and I had met. I met a woman as well. We were.
He's picking up all these.
Right.
You don't have to dance around the subject.
No, I'm going to it. I met a woman
My DC
as well,
lifestyle.
and we got to talking in line while we were checking things out, and all the vibes were there, but just mentally I just wasn't there. And so at the end, when she was done checking out, she had kind of lingered a little bit, and I was finished as well, and she goes, "We have a good day." And I'm like, "All right, see you." Like the green light was there, and I just wasn't about that life at the time. So anyway, you fast forward to a week, and I see her, and
following me.
Right, and I'm just something compelled me to go speak to her.
Yeah.
And it was not an awkward conversation. It felt very natural. I asked her if I knew her, and she had like the stankiest look on my face, like, no, I don't know you at all. And so I started running through like my Rolodex of places, and it was like a half a second of awkward pause, thankfully one of the sales associates saved me and was like, do y'all need any help? And we said no. And as I turned to say no, I'll never forget it, she leaned over and picked a piece of hair off of my shirt. And I was like, I'm in there. I'm in there. It is over.
Yep.
We have already broken that personal space barrier. Yep. And did you tell me I smoked?
And they're like swimwear.
You did smoke.
Okay, she told me I smoked. It's like 2 very good signs.
She was getting weak in the knees.
Yeah. So what I told her was, it's gonna sound cheesy, but it was something in me. It was my soul, like calling out, because I had found the one. I would later learn that, but honestly, when I saw her, it was something that I couldn't put my finger on as to why I felt like I knew her.
But we didn't even start dating after that. So then, like, seriously, maybe we've known each other for a little while, and he, like, hey, you want to hang out? Like, yeah, let's hang out. So we haven't talked a whole bunch. So we hang out, and he starts telling me about his on-again, off-again girlfriend. And he's like, yeah, it's just, and
situationship.
His situation. Yeah. So I was like, this is not the place for me. Like, that's friends. Like, he just told me, like, you're in the friend zone, girl. And I was like, okay. So we became friends. And we were friends for months. Like,
it was a while.
It was a while. We were friends.
All of 2013, I don't know if we realized
the majority
of
it,
we were building, but it was a friendship.
Yeah, we were friends, and that's it.
So when did you know that she was the one? When did you get serious about it and knew that you needed to
in that moment
shift?
It was little light bulb moments. I actually wrote down a list of like all the qualities I want in a wife. This was I had thought about that before in past relationships, but I never put anything down on paper. And with her I did, not realizing it was for her. So I just was writing down qualities of what I wanted in a wife. And then not rating her, I just asked myself, does Ashley have this? And they were all yeses. And so that part of me is analytical. So when I looked at the paper, I was like, I gotta stop playing around. Like this is something special. So yeah.
And what was that for you? When did you know James was someone worth giving some more serious consideration to?
The James got me to go back to church. And not only did he bring me to church, but he brought my mom to church. And we hadn't been to church since I was like in the CEW Christian Cooper Steppers drill team, like when I was a kid, and I was like, well, I don't want to go to your church, James, because you already there. Like, that's your church, and it's going to be like, welcome to my church. And I am James, and that's Ashley. And I was like, I don't want it. I want us to both go new together. So he was like, okay, well, if you go to church with me, I'm going to take you to brunch. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to brunch.
You can take me to eat.
Yes. And so every Sunday he would be like, okay, so this week, let's try this one. Well, what time does their service start? Blah, blah, blah. And we'd go, and then we'd go to brunch and be like, okay, so how did you feel about it? Did you like this one? How did you like the people? Did you like the service? Do you think it's somewhere you want to go back to? And then the next week we tried a different one and a different one, and then we went to Fort Bend. And it was like, oh, I really like that one a lot. And I think we started going in February, and they were doing like a marriage, like a relationship. And then you go to church and they be talking right to you. He was talking right to us. And then like, well, this is the church that we gotta go to because it's happening.
And that's been actually something for us too, especially after she moved back to Houston, talking about where we can grow together spiritually. And especially as we do our intentional building in our relationship, we both grew up in the church together. And I was talking to a mentor, and he was saying perhaps because you've grown up there, maybe you need to try and look at some other places. This is a mentor who also goes to the same church as us, right? And it's like because you might be in a different season where you need something else deposited into you as you move along that. So that's interesting that y'all did try out churches together.
I'm thinking about that now, listening to her. I was very adamant about church, of course, but it was my church that I was adamant about in the beginning. And when she brought up, let's essentially find God
let's
together.
Go together. Let's go somewhere where we both going to be brand new.
That was novel to me, but I was with it, and we ended up finding a great situation. So, I definitely have heard a thing for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like when you, I don't want to ask all the questions here.
Well, I don't know the questions.
This is right here. We talk
like,
about
I wasn't a part of this.
but like, so when y'all, so
So why'd you put this up here?
so when, we'll cut all this out.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But when y'all found a church, you started to grow together. Like, what was it that helped you move in the direction of doing some intentional development together, and then and especially as you look to build strong connections and relationships with each other? Were there any distractions that you had to remove, or things you had to work on in order to really discover this is what we need to be together?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing I know, I learned a lot from, I guess, previous relationships. And in dating James, I would be like, well, James, you know what? I've dated someone before where we argued a lot. And I've learned that it's not in me to argue with people. Now, we do argue sometimes, don't get me wrong. But everything is not worth, everything you think in your mind is not worth saying. Every emotion you have,
She's speaking to us right now.
feeling, every feeling that you feel is not worth coming out of your mouth. Because you argue with people, and then like the next day, you don't even remember what you argued about. Or like last week, like if you argued about something last week, you remember how that person made you feel. You remember everything that they said to you that was ugly or nasty. You remember that you cried alone in the bathroom, but you don't even remember what you were fighting about.
Yeah, like at the core, what was it?
Right. What was the disagreement? So a lot of stuff that we have done has been like intentional. A lot of things that we have, gone through as a couple, or disagreements, it's been like, okay, let's stop. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. Or, you know what? I think you need to leave. And James would be like, you're kicking me out. And I'd be like, I lived alone. So I'd be like, I think you need to go home. Like, you need to go home. And he'd be like, are you serious?
What?
And he would be so mad.
Yeah, I'm not that type of guy. Like, I'm very, I'm sorry.
He'd be really upset. And then I'd be like, we'll just talk tomorrow. Because, that was just really one thing that I've learned through, past things. It's like everything that you think and all that, it's not worth saying all the time. Every emotion you have is not worth spitting out.
And see, I'm a very emotional person. I'm very
Y'all are the same person.
Yeah.
Y'all are the same person.
So, and it's, as far as like obstacles as we were building and distractions, I was very, not only was I emotional, I was very selfish. And I was so used to having things my way. Like, she wasn't the first person to tell me that I'm spoiled. And for me, coming from a family of 5, being the oldest, I never really saw that. Looking back, I probably did have some privileges, like having my own room, things of that sort. That stuff kind of builds your persona. And so I was very much used to having things my way, whether I was in a good situation or not. And that was a major obstacle that I had to overcome in order to get to where we both wanted to be. There were past relationships that was a huge obstacle. Part of my selfishness was wanting to hold on to things, not realizing that it's okay to let go. And to her earlier point, it's okay to let go and learn. And that lesson is what you're able to keep, not the person or not the good feelings that you had, but the lesson from past relationships is what you take with you. And then there was some physical distractions. There was a moment that I was having with a few of my friends where they were doing things differently in the physical department, where it was not a distraction for them. And by clearing that out the way, they were able to understand, the woman that they wanted to be with. And what I saw was their success in that. And I had never done that before. I had never done anything like that. But I said to myself, at this point I had already made the list.
We really are the same.
Yeah. So at that point I had already made the list, and I was like, I know she's different. So in order for us to have a different thing, I had to do things differently.
Yes.
And I we did that together. Together we did that. We got through it, and we're better for it because it opened the space for us to have the conversations underneath the table. It allowed us to be okay after I'm storming out her apartment. Like,
let me tell you.
What just happened?
Yeah. You being political, I'm gonna be real.
Okay.
It was okay for maybe like a few months, and then he was like, "Oh, we good. Like, I know I love you. Like, this is real.
Right.
So we good now. Like, let's go ahead." And I was like, "No, I like this. Like, this is good. I'm really seeing like everything. I'm clear. Like, it's no fog. It's no distraction. Like, this is good." And he was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Okay, so then we just keep this up like till we get like engaged." And I'm like, "No, we got like all the way, going all the way. Like, this is good. Like, we are learning stuff. We don't have to worry about anything. Like." And it did. It opened up the opportunity for us to like be under the table and have conversations. And it did. It opened up the opportunity for us to argue about stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a quick fix or a distraction there to be like, okay, we're back. We're cool. No, we had to deal with our differences and the good and the bad. And it wasn't a physical, feel better. It wasn't a patch.
And see, for the two of us, we're not on the other side of it like you guys are. So, in those tough times when we're like, when you might be like, you were, or something, you know what I mean? And it's one of those, okay, seeing that it works in the long run on the other side of it, that the fact that you had these discussions before you were married, so then after you're married, you're not having to deal with the same things over and over again. It's just good to see.
I mean, because, like, for real, that ain't easy. Like, at all. Especially when that, like, past lifestyle existed, you know?
Right?
It's almost like you think that's how it's supposed to go.
Especially in today's society. Everything's wrapped around it.
Yes.
Everything.
And it's interesting, like, once you're on the other side, there's some moments where you have to, you realize, like, okay, this is what I asked for, and before the marriage. So the switch, there's no switch. Is my point. But the good part about it is when you look at marriage in its totality, if everything else is good, that will come back to the good distractions, the physical distractions. So that's all.
Word. So I want to shift gears a little bit because one of the things with Chelsea and I is that we're completely different people. Our lifestyles coming into this relationship were completely different. So I've always been the type of person who's like, I'm on the go. I need to be interacting with these people and looking long term. That's only gonna heighten, right? Because all my life I've seen myself in public life. We'll just say it that way. And Chelsea has never ever imagined her life that way. And so, James, I know you're highly involved in politics. You ran for public office locally here. So my question is for Ashley. How did you? So when James first decided he wanted to run for public office, how did you take that? What were your initial reactions to that, and particularly the impact it might have on your life?
Okay, so Chelsea and I kind of sound like a little thing. I'm like so regular and just like if I wasn't here, I'd be on the couch in the pajamas that I woke up in. But James, like his alarm clock went off at 8 and he's already gone somewhere. And by 1 o'clock, he's got like a haircut. He's gone boxing. He has gone to some kind of mentoring thing. And, he's done like 12 things. So I'm used to that even when we were just dating. James was always on the move, always on the go, which works out good for me because me being the only child and living by myself for 10 years, it's like I need my own personal time. So I'm cool with it. I do like to go to nice things. But like he's the fancy one and I'm the not fancy one. So it is like you say, y'all are different. Like we're different and it's good because he doesn't always have to be fancy. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to put on slacks? I'm like, you better put something regular. I'm putting on flip-flops, so you better come on because you're going to miss out. But then it's times when he's like, okay, Ashley, I got us tickets and we're going to this gala. And I'm like, cool, I get to dress up nice. So it pulls me out a little bit. It pulls him out of what he's normally into. When he ran for public office, the hard part is that I worked for the place he ran for. So I was like, James, why did you have to run for the school district? And I was like teacher of the year that year. And I was like, I can't be out there, you know, slandering other candidates because that's what I'll probably normally be doing. Like, I can't make the slander website and then the IP address come back to me, you know. And I work for the district. I'm going to lose my job, you know.
Wow.
That was the hardest part. But going to the places and meeting the other people, meeting people's wives and stuff like that, that was all fine. The hardest part is when you want somebody at home, I think. Maybe one of the harder parts. Because then James and I talk about, like, okay, when are we going to have kids and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, look, you want to run for office, you run for office. You want to go and be a part of these organizations and be on the boards and stuff. You can do all of that. But when we have kids, you got to be able to come home. Because I'm not raising kids by myself. Like, and then if I'm coming home from work at 4 or 5 and I'm going to pick up a kid from somebody's mom's house and I'm coming home and I'm feeding and bathing and you walk in the house at 8 o'clock and kiss a baby on the cheek and go to bed, like, that's not going to work.
Yeah. That's interesting because that's my schedule.
Yeah.
Like, I get home around 8:30. Yeah. Recently it's been because of work. But when I was getting off at like 5:30, since I was working downtown, and I still do, but I would just go to the event, whether it was something civic engagement related or an information circle and leading that discussion. But for me, running, it was interesting because I never really factored in someone else's life in my running, going back to that selfish component of me. And it took me a while to step back and really think about, like, I'm running this campaign. I've been wanting to run for years, but now I have this whole other person that I have to be aware of. And it took some doing. The campaign itself was fine. And, you know, I didn't win, so there wasn't anything after that. But going forward now, especially since we're married, it is something that I have to consider, like, my time. So if I were to run and win, I wouldn't be able to do probably 3 other organizations worth of work because I do want to be home, whether we have kids in the immediate future or not. I want to be home to talk to her about whatever's going on. With going back to politics, when I've actually learned from her and kind of her different thought process in certain issues. So, you know, when I was running, you know, for school board, I mean, she was my think tank, of course, and it helped me out.
Be glad that he's the one that's out there talking. Because I just say anything, but he takes it in, like, you know, he puts it together. But I'll be like, they said what? Yes, not that.
Yeah. You saw the lip curl. But with other issues, you know, world issues, because, you know, education is a huge component to, I believe, someone's success, and I'm an advocate for education, public education specifically. But with some of the other current events that are going on, we discuss that often, and my viewpoint's a little different than hers, and we learn from each other, and those types of conversations, and then we can get in a black club if you like, but I need that back and forth because I'm thinking, you know, I know as much as I need to know. It might be that alpha complex. We know everything we need to know about every little issue. But to hear her, whether she's on the ground level with education or she's at a distance or something else, I'm like, I never thought about it that way. So she's actually sharpening my skill set, you know, to be a good public advocate, you know, when running for public office.
And so that's the same thing with us. You say that whole I know everything I need to know about everything, right? Given where I came from in my previous life before I moved back to Houston, like, I'm like, politics, world events, like, I know all that stuff, right? And she'll come and say, I think that's stupid. I'm like, what? You cannot ever say that out loud.
But he thinks that I'm like attacking his heart and his soul.
She said, we were talking about education one time, and she said, yeah, high school was so dumb. It was just stupid. I was like, what?
But I was talking about a specific aspect, like certain aspects of it. But once we got to the root of what I was really saying,
I agree.
He was able to wrap his mind around it, but it's just the way that it came across at first, and like how you were saying, like, what?
And I mean, at the end, sometimes we still don't agree. But and James will always come up and be like, "Hey, good talk, man. Good talk."
Oh, I dig that. I dig that. We'll have to, we'll have to start getting into that. Or,
And
like,
one thing,
for real.
like some advice is to have like married friends that you're cool with, because one thing you'll realize, and this is just my own opinion, I'm nobody's therapist, believe me, but if you go back and you have a fight and then you tell your mom, you know what, mom, this happened and blah blah blah, then in my opinion, like, your family holds that, you know. Like if I had a brother or something, and my brother says, you know what, my wife did da 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 da, and I'd be looking at her on Thanksgiving like, you know what, and I might pull her to the side and say, let me tell you something, girlfriend, you know. But I would always remember what happened. And at the same time, like, I do have married girlfriends, and having separate friends in general is a really good thing, because it's like you're not always my go-to person. Not that I don't want to hang out with you 24 hours a day, but it's cool to hang out with other people. And I have some married friends, and I'd be like, girl, you know what, James, you know, we moved in and he leaves socks on the floor. I'm making this up. He leaves socks on the floor, and I hate those socks on the floor. I could just burn them up or something. And my girlfriend would be like, you know what, my husband leaves socks on the floor too, you know. And you realize we're having the same problems.
Just being able to relate.
Right. Like, we have the same problems. Can we talk about that a little bit?
What?
Can we? So,
what?
She's probably going to get mad at me, but we're going here.